the beautiful lie. Paris is a lie, a golden lie. A city wrapped in light, metal, and glass. People stroll its boulevards, sip coffee, take photographs, and believe they stand in the center of civilization. But beneath the cobblestone, something older lurks, something deeper, something hungry. 20 meters down, below the metro and the sewers, lies another Paris, a Paris of limestone, bone, moisture, silence. They call it the Catacombs. But that word is polite, too polite. The correct term is overflow. In the 18th century, Paris drowned in its own dead. Cemeteries overflowed. Bodies ruptured into basements. Soil turned to a greasy wax. Human tallow. The air tasted like metal and milk. Death soaked the city. So Paris did the practical thing. It moved the dead. 6 million of them, from one nightmare into a deeper one. The transfer.
Paris, 1786.
The transfers began, quiet, after midnight. Black wagons rolled through the sleeping city, packed with bones, not corpses, just pieces, inventory. They went to the abandoned quarries at Tombe-Issoire, down shafts, down tunnels, down into the dark. Men choked on chalk dust, an old perfume as they stacked the bones by hand. Femurs into walls, skulls into patterns, chaos into design. 6 million bodies, compressed into architecture. Tourists know the tidy part. The hearts made of skulls, the crosses, the artful ossuary. But the tidy part is a showroom, only 1%. The real catacombs stretch over 300 kilometers, a labyrinth of wet stone and anonymous remains. Maps lie, GPS fails, light dies fast. Short beat. Here, the living go to listen, and sometimes the dead answer. The cataphiles. They call themselves cataphiles, the lovers of the underworld, not tourists. Not historians, not sane. They slip through manholes, broken cellar walls, forgotten railway tunnels. They bring candles, maps, wine, and sometimes reasons they never share. Some go to seek silence, the only true silence in Paris, a silence thick enough to swallow thought. Some go to party, hidden from police, hidden from consequence. Music echoing off stone and bone. But others go for the stories. The ones whispered in basements after 3 bottles of cheap red. Stories the guidebooks ignore. Stories the authorities deny. Stories about things that move without moving. Things that speak without voices. Things that wait. If you follow the forbidden tunnels deep enough, past the beaches, where the floor crumbles into sand, past the bunker, carved by the Nazis in the occupation, you reach a place where the bones are not arranged. They are simply there, collapsed, overflowing, unapologetic. This is where the silence changes, where it gains texture, shape, breath. The cataphiles call it the shift. The moment you realize you are no longer alone. Marcus. Marcus didn't go for the thrill, not for the history, not for the wine-fueled stories in basements. He went because the catacombs made him feel something he couldn't explain. Marcus was an acoustic engineer. He spent his life listening for things other people ignored. Echoes, subharmonics, interference patterns, sound where there shouldn't be any. He understood rooms the way some people understood faces, by tone, by resonance, by breath. But Marcus had a flaw, a small one, a quiet one. He felt too much. Other people called it sensitivity. He called it awareness. When he first heard the legend of the Chambre des Soupirs, the Chamber of Sighs, he didn't laugh like the others. He didn't roll his eyes. He just listened. A room so deep, the city forgot it existed. A room that gathered the vibrations of the living and fed them to the dead. That was the story. That was the whisper. That was the bait. Marcus didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in sound, in pressure, in resonance, in the idea that an emotion strong enough could leave a fingerprint on the air. Short beat. That's why he went. Not to debunk the catacombs, not to conquer the labyrinth, but to understand a feeling that no one else could name. Descente. He went alone. That was his second mistake. The first was thinking the catacombs were a place. They aren't. They're a condition. He entered the network at 2:08 a.m. through a forgotten railway hatch near Montparnasse. The city was still awake above. Cars, metro, footsteps, life. But the deeper Marcus descended, the more Paris faded. Sound bled out first, then warmth, then time. The catacombs do not take these things violently. They take them gently, like someone removing a coat from your shoulders, like someone whispering, "You won't need that here." Marcus marked his path in chalk. Left, left, right. Through a mouse hole, through a corridor flooded knee-deep with freezing water. He felt the ceiling lower, the walls squeeze. His breath grow louder. He checked his recorder, his gain, his backup light. Everything was fine. Everything was controlled. Everything was rational. So why did his heartbeat sound like someone knocking from the inside of his ribs? Marcus kept walking. He didn't look back. Not yet. The Chamber of Sighs. Marcus knew he was close when the tunnels changed shape. The walls lost their order. Stone became jagged. Ceilings dipped low enough to brush his hair. The stacked bones vanished. No more decorative ossuaries. No more patterns for tourists. Just piles. Hills of femurs. Cliffs of ribs. Avalanches of skulls without symmetry or apology. The light from his headlamp shivered across wet limestone. Dust motes drifted like ash. His breath sounded too loud. Not panicked. Just present. Too present. Then he found it. A round chamber carved by water and pressure and time. A perfect dome. Bare. Silent. Waiting. The cataphiles called it the Chambre des Soupirs, the Chamber of Sighs, named not for the dead, but for how the living reacted inside it. Marcus stood in the center. His boots crunched bone dust the way snowfall crushes dead leaves. He set up his microphone. Directional. High gain. Noise-cancelling headphones, like armor. He checked the recorder. Batteries. Memory. Signal. Everything was normal, which is what made the air so abnormal. It felt pressurized, not suffocating, just attentive, like the room was listening to him listening to it. Marcus smiled, thinking it was just nerves, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. The release valve. At first, there was nothing. Just the hum of his own pulse in the headphones. He adjusted the gain. Higher, higher. The silence seemed to deepen, as if the absence of sound was thickening. Then, the meter twitched. Just once. A small spike. Air displacement. Thermal variance. Pressure shift. He leaned closer, not frightened, interested. The sound came again. Longer, soft. A slow exhale. Like someone cooling a burn. Shh. Marcus froze. The sound didn't repeat. So he increased the gain one last time. The silence shivered, then fractured. The exhale became murmurs. Not voices exactly, just fragments. Vowels dripping through stone. Consonants pressed against air like fingerprints on glass. The temperature dropped. Condensation bloomed. Marcus watched his breath shape itself in the beam of his lamp. Still, nothing in him screamed danger. Not yet. It felt more like eavesdropping on a conversation that wasn't meant for him. A private sorrow shared by millions. The voices. The murmurs thickened, layered, crowded, not like whispers in a theatre, but like a stadium heard from miles away. Just enough to know the voices belonged to people. Enough to know they suffered. Marcus leaned in, head tilted, listening the way animals listen before storms. The murmurs sharpened, not into sentences, just into intention. A woman's voice, wet with grief. A child, breathless and pleading. A man, ragged, dying on a consonant that never finished. Marcus's hands trembled, not from fear, but from recognition. He'd heard sounds like this before in hospital hallways, in war documentaries, in recordings of riots and collapsing buildings. The sonic residue of panic, the human body begging to stay alive. He tried to calm himself, to let science intervene. It's just resonance, just pressure differentials, just the geometry of the dome, logic held for one breath, maybe two. Then the murmurs split, threaded, separated into distinct strands, each voice fighting for space. He could almost make out words now. Water, cold, mother, wait, closer. The last one didn't sound frightened. It sounded aware. It sounded present. And that was when Marcus understood the voices weren't rising from the walls. They were rising from the bones. 6 million of them. Stacked, piled, pressed into history like sediment. And for the first time since he'd entered the catacombs, Marcus felt something he couldn't name. Not terror, not sorrow. Something older, something buried. The sensation of being noticed. The exit. Marcus tore off the headphones. They clattered onto bone. The voices didn't stop. Of course they didn't. Why would they? They weren't in the recorder. They were in the room, in the air, in him. He grabbed his gear with hands shaking just enough to betray his calm. He wasn't running. Not at first. Just moving quickly, purposefully. Left, through the arch, past the rib cliff. But something was wrong. The tunnels didn't look the same. The chalk marks weren't there. Or maybe they were, and the light just refused to show them. The bones shifted in his periphery. Not physically, just in meaning. Skulls that once seemed decorative now felt like faces, witnesses, observers. The murmurs followed him, crowded him, pressed against his thoughts until his own inner voice started to thin. Marcus tried to speak, to remind himself who he was, what he was doing. But the catacombs are not a place for identity. They are a place for subtraction. And the deeper you go, the more you leave behind. You. Marcus did get out, technically. 2 days later, cataphiles found him near the tourist exit. His flashlight was dead. His clothes were torn. His fingernails were cracked and bloody from clawing at limestone. He was breathing, which is not quite the same as living. The doctors called it trauma, hyperstimulation, isolation-induced psychosis. They had words for everything except what mattered. Marcus never talked about the voices. He never talked about the bones. He never talked about the moment the catacombs stopped being a place and became an audience. He just sat in the corner, hands clamped over his ears, as if the world was too loud. But you have something Marcus never had. You have his recording. You have the curiosity he carried into the dark. You have the same impulse to understand what waits beneath the city. You're listening right now, which means the catacombs are listening too. Not to Marcus, to you. And unlike Marcus, you are not lost in the tunnels. Not yet. You are still above ground, still alive, still comfortable. That will change, because once the catacombs notice you, really notice you, they do not forget. Epilogue. The listener. Down below, 6 million voices wait in the dark. They have spent 2 centuries pressurized by stone and suffering, stripped of names and graves and memories. They do not want revenge. They want witnesses. They want someone to hear them, to carry their last sounds back to the surface. Marcus refused. He shut them out. He covered his ears. But you are still listening, and the catacombs never waste a listener. One day, when Paris forgets the light again, when the streets empty, when the city sleeps, you will go down to them. Not to tour, not to explore, not even to escape, just to answer.